Yes, as the big story that we're discussing, the effects of the landslide and mudslide victims and this disaster in Bududa. In studio, I have Nathan Tumahami, who's the Director for Eastern Africa Resilience at the Africa Resilience Innovation Lab at Resilient Africa Network. Nathan, good evening.
Good evening.
The research I have in front of me was also, is it a partnership with Makerere University?
This research actually was done by Makerere University, and Resilient Africa Network is one of the innovation labs under Makerere University.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Okay, great. So just to understand this, this report says coping strategies for landslide and flood disasters, and in this report there's also what can be done. In other words, or recommendations. But I'm guessing from 2010 to where we are now, not much has changed, as you were telling me off air. Not much has been done. So this can still apply to today.
Yes.
But perhaps we go back to briefly understand why these are high-risk areas, why they're vulnerable areas.
Thank you so much. First of all, we want to extend our actually condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones due to disasters in Bududa. And back to your question, yes, there are quite a number of issues that are happening that especially make these communities more vulnerable to the landslides that we are seeing, as well as floods.
Yes.
One of these is actually the aspect that we all know that these areas are steep in terms of topography. So they are quite high areas in terms of topography, and as a result of that, they are so prone to landslides. But besides that, there are also some of the factors that actually have been caused by human nature, what we call the technological causes of landslides and floods. One of these is actually the land management practices. We very well know that as a result of population growth in this area, in this region, people have been encroaching on some of the risk areas. And as a result, the kind of environment has been degraded, and this has exposed the environment to actually the effects of the landslides and the floods that we are seeing.
So we're saying not just living there, but also farming there.
Farming, farming, there is settlement itself, but also other human activities that are getting onto the land in these areas. So this is mostly exposing to the landslides that we are seeing. But also the other aspect that we need to look at beyond, the human population is the issue of resettlement.
Yes.
Because we very well understand that most of these, about 5 sub-counties in Bududa have been declared to be at risk.
Yes.
And one of these is actually Bukarasi, which was heavily hit, in addition to Names, which was worst hit in 2010.
Yes.
So, and all these sub-counties, after having been declared as risk areas, there has been a lot of recommendations to relocate these people from these risky areas. One of these, actually, government tried to do this, especially relocating people to Kiryandongo. But this program was not very successful because people who were settled in Kiryandongo actually returned back
to the same
areas, actually to more risky areas, because of several reasons. One of these reasons actually was to do with the attachment that people have to the...
Because I read that report and actually said cultural beliefs, and I was defeating the purpose. So they believe, if despite it being a vulnerable area or a risk area.
From our research engagements, it's very clear that people have a lot of attachment to their grandparents.
It's home.
Yes, it's home. So they attach a lot of value to that. And so as a result of that, they wouldn't want to be extremely very far from this. So we did a study in 2016 where we found that actually about 80% of these communities preferred to settle within the Mount Elgon region. And that's why we actually recommended that we needed actually to get land within the Mount Elgon region.
So not to go too far.
Not to go too far, and people needed to get in touch with what is happening in their ancestral areas. So, and this is where government got the idea of resettlement in Bulambuli. So, and because of this, of course, there were several challenges in managing resettlement program. One is that people needed to understand, for example, from our research, they needed to understand what will happen to the land where we are living. So the aspects of land management were not quite clear in terms of engaging these populations. So they were not quite sure of who will own the land where they are living in Bududa. So as a result of that, the issue of resettlement was in balance because people needed to clearly understand who owns the land.
Not clear, Nathan, in the sense of no one is telling us.
Yes.
The channels of communication were not clear.
Not very clear.
Okay.
But also government needed to be very clear. For example, in terms of land ownership, who owns the land in Bududa where I'm living, and how do I own the land where I'm being resettled?
Yes.
So people were being resettled, but the aspects of land ownership where they were being resettled were not clear. So people were now left in balance. So it means that also the resettlement program needed to have a very clear communication system that clearly looks at the issues of these people within these communities.
We're saying there, as we're winding up, going forward 2018, that clearly still applies. Resettlement is still a very necessary coping strategy. Will it work this time?
Well, if it is clearly done with the participation of stakeholders, especially the affected communities, listening to their views in terms of how they would want this resettlement done, I think it is something that we need to look into because it's one of the clear 5 key strategies that are highly mentioned in the disaster management strategy and policy of government, and we still feel from our assessment that this is something that can clearly work if different stakeholders are clearly engaged.
Thank you so much, Nathan Tumuhamia, who's the Director, East African Resilience, Africa Resilience Innovation Lab at Resilient Africa Network, Makerere University. So